And we are back in Newham, London's third highest populated borough, located in the east side of the city. Newham's also one of the boroughs with the highest proportion of individuals living in poverty. In an earlier video, I discussed the deadly war between Newham gang, Manor Park vs Guildford being in another borough. However, in this video, I'll dive into the deadly war that has split one borough, Newham, into a bloodbath that has consumed people of all ages, gang member or innocent alike. The city has been split into two sides, NorthSide Newham aka 7th and SouthSide Newham aka 6th. NorthSide Newham is made up of several sets which include Blackwater Close and Woodgrange Estate, both located in Forest Gate, CGE aka Chad Green Estate, BCM aka Believe, Conquer and Motivate, and other smaller sets to make up the NorthSide Newham Alliance. Now onto Southside Newham. It's made up of sets like ACG from Beckton, Custom House, Canning Town, Custom Trench Boys, and a couple more. A bit of history. 7th aka Northside Newham were formerly known as the E7 Crips. The gang was formulated in the Forest Gate area. A number of past and current generation of gangs have existed in Newham and other London boroughs that associate with the colour blue, some of which in the past had also self-identified themselves as Crips. E7 Crips were created around 2003, which had been composed of a mixture of street gang link-ups such as the Smooth Moneymakers and older music collectives such as Kamikaze Crew and Mob Dat Crew. On January 2009, Stephen Lewis aka Captain, who repped the set CGE from Northside Newham, would attend a charity event aimed at campaigning against youth violence and anti-knife crime in Plaistow. The irony was, when he made his way outside with his brother, he was spotted by Custom House members who were armed with knives. Stephen was attacked by the youth and stabbed to death. Stephen was cradled by his 16-year-old sister Tanya as he was laying dying in the street while his brother looked on. The killing on that Saturday night in Plaistow, East London, was the first death that sparked a vicious cycle of revenge killings, turning this into a deadly war. Chris Mazekulua, 18 years old, of Hooper Road Custom House, was given at least 17 years at the Old Bailey in November 2009 after being found guilty of murdering a teenager. Now, Believe, Conquer and Motivate members, mostly schoolboys at the time, were deeply enraged at the death of their fallen friend Captain, and it didn't take long for them to seek revenge. So in the early hours of July 4th, 2010, Elton Campos de Oliveira aka Ace, who repped Custom House, was cycling through East London when he was spotted by a large swarm of about 20 CGE and BCM members. He was beaten with baseball bats, metal bars and finally fatally stabbed. Ace was taken to Royal London Hospital where he was pronounced dead in the morning. The judge heard the attack was a revenge for the murder of Stephen Lewis aka Captain, who was stabbed to death at an anti-knife crime disco 18 months earlier. Stephen's best friend, Jarrell Wilson Mooney, 19 from Romford, was convicted of murder alongside Larty. Both had belonged to the rival Plaistow-based Chad Green gang. Each were handed a life sentence and ordered to serve a minimum of 18 years. Sammy Guns aka Samuel, a well-respected and loved CGE member, was also the fourth suspect and murderer of Ace. However, before he could be sentenced, he was shot dead on the 23rd of October 2010 by Peckham boys from South London. Around that time, there had been a series of disputes and violations involving the Peckham boys and members from Stratford/Plaistow in Newham. Sammy was unfortunately the victim of a retaliation. Now, there was a BCM member known as Chrome, real name Champion Gander. He was a talented rapper from the Stratford set of Northside Newham. He was also a very talented footballer, an Arsenal trainee in fact. Champion Gander aka Chrome was 17 years old when he and a friend were in Forest Gate. They were spotted by Custom House members after a brutal attack involving belts, a hammer and at least one knife, where Chrome was stabbed 11 times in the head, chest, arms and legs, his friend being attacked too. Chrome sadly died at the scene, whereas his friend survived. The whole attack happened outside a primary school, and although adults witnessed it, they didn't provide witness statements until 3 years later. Amani Lynch was arrested and was on trial for the murder. Judge Wendy said 2 of the strikes were so powerful they chipped his bones. The Old Bailey heard a transcript of a phone call that revealed Lynch had called his friends to pack the public gallery so as to intimidate other defendants from giving evidence. For some odd reason, Lynch was found guilty of only manslaughter and sentenced to 14 years. Now from 2012 onwards, there was a very talented custom house rapper known as Mover. He would release music that would generate millions of views. He was a gem in a scene known as road rap, which consists of rapping about real life hardships and struggles that many relate to. On July 3, 2014, Lithuanian national Zion Darunas Lorinavičius, forgive me for the pronunciation, was enjoying an ice cream on Parson Street in Hendon while walking with his father. They just finished renovating property in the area and worked hard to provide for their family back home in Lithuania. The son was wearing a shiny Rolex, which was spotted by Mover and two others after driving in the area. Mover and the others jumped out the car. Their goal was a watch and a bag. Zion Darunas Lorinavičius, 38, was stabbed in the chest with a fearsome hunting knife, and they took the watch and bag. The victim's father, Pranas, said the three robbers ambushed them from behind in an attack that was over in a flash. He said one man was armed with a knife while the other two men tripped his son, a married father of one, over as he tried to flee. This all happened in 15 seconds. It's a sobering thought that 1 minute Zion Doris could be happily eating an ice cream on a summer afternoon in the company of his father, and the next he was lying in the street with his chest cut open. Crazy, man. Emergency services tried saving him. London ambulance were called, but sadly he was pronounced dead at the scene. Those involved were all arrested and faced trial for the murder a year later, and in May 2015, Mover, 22, and Stefan Lasana, 22, were each sentenced to 30 years in prison. The strangest thing about Mover's actions were that he rapped in a song warning about how stupid it is to do the very same thing that he did.
Now he's thinking about the bird that he's holding, all because he stabbed man spur the moment.
And if the 30-year sentence ending a promising rap career where he could have made it out of the hood legally wasn't enough heartache, well, the watch they stole was fake and the bag contained nothing but the father's glasses. Now in 2015, both warring sides of Newham had some promising rappers. Custom House had Kojo Funds. BCM/Stratford had J Hus. Both would incorporate their Afrobeats into their rap music. J Hus dropped a very direct diss track towards Kojo Funds where he said, "Little Kojo scared, Kojo stressing, Kojo ran off, left his blessings, left his pride, left his bedroom, Kojo's lying, time for confession, Kojo what, Kojo who, Kojo ooh, I make more funds than you." It doesn't get more direct than that. Kojo Funds dropped a reply of his own. Funny enough, the beat brought the best out of them musically, with Kojo's reply being a banger. Now J Hus had been stabbed by a Custom House member in the past, so Kojo decided to use the picture of J Hus on his hospital bed as the thumbnail for a diss track. Now come 2017, there was a new generation of drillers in SouthSide Newham. Young Diz, aka Prince of the Six, created ACG along with twins S and H. ACG stands for Anybody Can Go. And as for NorthSide Newham, Y.CB, aka Crazy Black, was a rapper from Forest Gate. He would have his breakthrough moment in 2017 with the track Take That Risk. The song was loaded with 808s, which allowed his vivid street tale to shine and connect with audiences who were far removed from that lifestyle. The clarity he showcased, the considered rhyme schemes, few to this day have been able to come close. Many believe Y.CB to be the king of UK drill. And on the 2nd of April 2017, Ahmed Dean Jar, aka Grinner, who repped Custom House, was buying a soft drink at an off-license store in Freemasons Road. He was stabbed inside the shop, which was less than 50 yards from his house. He sadly died at the scene minutes after 3:40 PM. His post-mortem stated that the cause of death was a stab wound to the heart. Several people were arrested, but no charges were made. The alleged murderer of Grinner was said to be Y.CB. And although CCTV images have been released and a reward of 20,000 for any information leading to an arrest, the case remains unsolved to this day. On the 25th of August 2017, 19-year-old Abdul Mayanja was giving friends a lift home when a female passenger fell ill, prompting them to stop in Wall Street, Stratford. Mr. Mayanja and his friends sat on the wall. They were approached by two Custom House members in Cruise and Ice Cream. They asked, "What end you from?" before suddenly shooting Abdul. He was rushed to hospital and later died. Both Ice Cream and Cruise were arrested and sentenced to 30 and 31 years respectively for the murder. Sadly, Abdul Mayanja was merely a civilian at the wrong place at the wrong time. The mere fact that they asked him where he was from as they were unsure if he was a gang member or not and then fired was sickening to say the least. Custom House members were still looking for a real member, and so on the 4th of September 2017, ACG members got into a Range Rover and travelled to Forest Gate. They spotted 14-year-old CJ. What happened next would reach national TV and shock the streets of London.
Corey Jr., CJ Davis, was shot dead as he stood by a playground on a September afternoon last year.
Everybody failed him. Everybody failed him. He's not here. Everybody failed him. I even feel like I failed him. And that's not a good thing for a mother to say.
Corey was groomed by NorthSide Newham to sell drugs and was often scared and told professionals he wasn't safe. Despite his concerns, social workers didn't recognise him as a victim, but rather he was seen as an offender and gave him no options to rehouse the boy in a different area. Young Diz and the twins were arrested for this case but shortly released. Young Diz dropped the evilest verse I've ever heard. I won't repeat it, but I'll put it on the screen for you guys to read. It's clear to see why Young Diz is referred to as the devil in Newham. Another thing to mention about Diz is the fact that he once said he lost his mother and felt like it was his fault. Maybe this adds to why he turned into someone so heartless.
Yeah, it could be the devil and that, yeah. It's just another name for me, innit? Devil.
And on the 14th of February 2018, Promise Nkeda, an alleged affiliate of the ACG 6 gang, was walking with his friends when Forest Gate members in a stolen BMW purposely crashed into him, mowing him down. They then chased him and stabbed him 15 times in Canning Town. Promise was repeatedly stabbed in the head, back and chest in the space of seconds. He managed to knock on a nearby door and the occupants raised the alarm, but despite paramedics battling to save his life, he was pronounced dead at the scene at about 8:40 PM. 4 teenagers were arrested and charged for his murder. The court heard that the stolen BMW was found crashed and a knife and a pair of latex gloves were later discovered behind the nearby telephone junction box. Mr. Kent said the knife had Promised DNA on it, while one of the gloves bore Doe's DNA. The prosecutor told jurors that the knife also fitted a sheath which was found near the attack and had Idris' DNA on it. After recovering the stolen car, police found a rucksack in the boot containing the juvenile's Oyster card and drinks container with his DNA on it, the court heard. Shamar Dawes and Ishaq Abedil were both sentenced to 18 years, whereas Idris was sentenced to 16 years, and finally Anton Muir sentenced to 17 years. Now on the 26th of July 2018, CB, while wearing a clown mask and 3 others got into a car armed with guns and knives and attempted to travel to rival blocks. They were intercepted by armed police. This resulted in a car chase which ended in a gunfight with the police officers. An armed response unit fired after shots were fired from a BMW. CB also pointed a shotgun at the police car but didn't fire.
Gun. 302 upon location of the
Shit. Pointed a long barrel weapon at us.
CB was jailed for 23 years. Some argue it was excessive and that he was only given life because police knew he killed Grinner but didn't have the evidence to charge him, so used this as an opportunity. CB was one of the few men whose ops actually gave props to him, as you can hear in this video.
No one even liked claiming gay. It was embarrassing. When CB come, I heard he was riding. Man got the drop. This guy's riding. Nah, he made it fun again. You know them ones like, hey, you know what? Free CB for real. He made the beef fun again, I ain't gonna lie.
Now back to young Diz. One of his youngers who would sell drugs would lose one of the packages. Allegedly, young Diz thought he stole it. Or maybe he did, who knows. So in devil-like fashion, he used the help of another 16-year-old boy who knew the younger, and on the night, 2nd of August 2018, the teenager made contact with him and suggested they meet in Barking. The kid turned up as agreed, and young Diz and 4 other youths pulled up in a dark blue Ford. The boy was punched in the head and body and ordered to get into the vehicle, where he was threatened with a machete and had 2 plastic bags put over his head and secured with an elastic band. He was driven to the home of one of the younger defendants, where he was held for around 2 hours and subjected to a violent and humiliating ordeal. He was forced to strip naked as Diz filmed and threatened to cut him up. The victim was hit with a metal pole over his face, back, legs and arms, and his hair was forcefully cut. Diz attempted to pour boiling water over the victim's head. He was forced to swallow a cannabis joint and was also threatened with scissors. His parents were also cold, and he was forced to beg for 1.5k to...
Your street name, I understand. What is your street name?
How come, man?
We believe your street name to be Young Diz.
How come, man?
Victim says that when he gets into the car, he immediately recognises the driver as Young Diz. Is that you?
How come, man?
Young Diz was sentenced to 12.5 years in prison after pleading guilty to kidnap, conspiracy to falsely imprison, conspiracy to blackmail, GBH and perverting the court of justice. The 4 other accomplices were jailed for between 2.5 and 3.5 years. Now the young ACG boys who were sentenced along with Diz were released and placed on tag. Despite being on tag, 2 boys aged 14 and 16 got into a stolen blackout Ford and drove to Chad Green in August 2019. They would spot CGE member Star Knight, where they would viciously attack him with machetes, resulting in his death. A glove with both the youth's DNA and the victim's blood on it was later recovered from an abandoned getaway car following a police search. What the 2 boys didn't know was their victim was also on an electric tag, and that the police were capable of asserting your whereabouts if you came into contact with another home monitoring unit. Anderson, who was then 18 at the time of the trial, was sentenced to 18 years, whereas the 16-year-old boy got 16 years. Now David Gorma was a marketing graduate and someone who worked for the NHS. His mother also worked for the NHS, and his father had passed away due to COVID. 2 days before his father's funeral, he was walking in Custom House on the phone to his girlfriend, and on April 2020, 4 bloodthirsty CGE and Stratford members were lurking looking for rivals. They spotted him and chased him. Thankfully, he outran the group. However, a car pulled up near him. His girlfriend claimed she heard one of the men ask him where he was from. David ran again, the doors of the vehicle opened and they chased him. CCTV captured the event and David was stabbed up to 9 times. All 4 men attempted to flee in their getaway car, but the wheel fell off, so they walked home. After the killing, one of them decided to draw a comic-style drawing and glorify the murder, and all 4 men were seen giggling during the trial, remorseless killers. While sitting in the trial, one of the men, Vagney Coulibaly, graffitied on the walls of the court, listing his dead ops and writing NorthSide Newham, and how he was a Custom House bully. Vagney Coulibaly and Mohammed Jallo were sentenced to 27 years, David True given 26 years, and Alex was handed a 21-year sentence. Around this time, a drill rapper from Forest Gate was dropping fire music to the point he caught the attention of Canadian megastar Drake. However, Yanko was busted for working as a courier in a county line operation all the way in Birmingham and sentenced to 3 years in prison. On top of a 3-year sentence he's already serving for firearm offences in London. One of the ACG twins spoke about him in an Insta Live, displeased with his music to say the least.
It's this Yanko, brother. Mother's life, bro. This you gives me a headache, fam. It gives me a headache, fam. Sometimes, yeah, when you hear stuff, yeah, I think, why are you lying, fam? You know, sometimes like there's some guys that are actually out here, you're like, you know what, he's out here. Man caught this you, bro. Man caught this you, not once, not twice, 3 times. One time though, man caught him. I ain't even gonna say who with, I ain't trying to, you feel me, but She say man no, he held that chep in, you already know.
K. John Lubin, aka K. Miz, was a Southside Newham affiliate. Apparently, in the morning 11th of December 2020, K. Miz and his friends will steal a scooter from Vanco. Later that evening, Vanco and his friends will ride out looking for K. Miz. They spotted K. Miz along with his friends in North Woolwich. A fight night would spark off where K. Miz stabbed a single time by Vanco. Sadly, it pierced through his heart and he immediately collapsed, dying at the scene at 6:50 p.m. Vanco and his friends would later be arrested and charged with murder. However, they would go on to trial in the summer of 2021 and beat both the murder and manslaughter charge, but be jailed for 2 years for violent disorder. 18-year-old Abu Bakr Jar, also known as Junior, who is the younger brother of Grinner, who I talked about earlier, who was fatally stabbed to death in a shop in 2017. Well, in Canning Town on Monday, April 25th, 2021, Junior Jar was shot by a man from a car. Then he got out of the car and proceeded to stab him. London Ambulance Services attended the scene. Despite the best efforts of the medics, he sadly died at the scene. A mother had officially lost 2 sons to these Newham streets. The killer remains at large and the murder remains unsolved till this day. No one wins in these wars. It's only a game of who loses the least, and both sides have lost a lot. I send my condolences to the family of everyone who passed away. Newham really needs help, and fast.